Welcome to the GenYPN Podcast, presented by young professionals for young professionals working in the public sector. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to the GenYPN Podcast and Vodcast. I'm Jess, Hresc, your host, and I'm a Policy Officer at the New South Wales Ministry of Health. I'm also a member of IPAA New South Wales Young Professionals Network Committee. IPAA is the Institute of Public Administration Australia, the professional association for the public sector. It's a non-for-profit organisation which provides public sector thought leadership, works to strengthen the capacity of public servants through events, training and other activities. We've developed this podcast and vodcast for the young professionals working in or interested in the public sector because we want to share with you our experiences of being young professionals as well as a range of topics about government. So today we're bringing to you a podcast about our experience as young professionals in government working from home as we're amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. And now most public sector people are working from home. We'll cover how we're going to keep physically and mentally healthy whilst working from home, how to keep connected to your manager and teams, and how to adapt to new technology, as well as what resources are available to support you. So today I'm joined by fellow members of the IPAA New South Wales YPN, Alex Kirkpatrick.
Hi, how you going?
Good, thank you. And you're from Department of Justice?
Yeah, that's right. Communities and Justice, we merged into one department not long ago, and that's part of the Stronger Communities cluster.
Awesome. And I'm also joined by Divya Nagavara.
Hi Jess, how are you?
Good, thank you. And you're from Department of Customer Service?
That's right. I'm from Liquor and Gaming New South Wales, which is a part of Department of Customer Service.
That's great. And you both are working from home now. How are you guys finding it?
Yeah, for me it's been a little bit testing. I live at home with my two sons and my wife, and we live in small quarters. We live in an apartment, so it's a little bit difficult to navigate things, but I was working from home before COVID-19 happened, so I did have an idea of how I can sort of be productive while I'm at home and space things out to make things work for myself. So yeah, bit difficult, but it's sort of working at the moment.
Yeah, and indefinitely as well. And how are you finding it, Dee?
Like Alex said, I used to work from home before COVID-19 as well. This is almost my 4th week into it as to working continuously work from home. So at home, I've got my husband and my pet, Mia. So we both work together with Mia. She kind of cracks the whip to keep us both on time. It's been an interesting journey so far because earlier it was a bit tough to get used to this whole work from home environment continuously. I used to be overproductive and work longer hours, but then now I've found this routine myself, and it was initially hard as well because I'm a very social person. It's hard for me to just stay home for longer hours. It feels very isolated, but now I think I've got my routine and I've found ways around it, so it's more like a work-life blend now.
Yeah, I also had a very similar experience when we first started working from home, and it was very hard to get away from the work computer when it hit 5 p.m, 5:30, 6:30, and now after it's been a few weeks, it's trying to find that routine where you can completely stop work and merge into the evening. We used to have transport, we moving to and from work, and we don't have that break time anymore. So routine wise, yeah, it's creating new routines. Have you guys changed your old routine much now that you're working from home?
Yeah, definitely I have. I was finding that doing the day continuously would be a bit troublesome because I wouldn't be able to necessarily start at the time I'd want to, depending on how things are going with the kids in the morning. So what I sort of worked out for myself was to take a longer lunch break and try and get some exercise, go to the park with the kids, break up the day a little bit, and it doesn't feel like daddy's just over there working for hours and hours on end. It feels a little bit more like normality because I'm away for a little while, then I'm back, I'm involved, back to working and then I can come back. So I think you definitely have to find ways to make it work for yourself.
Definitely. And especially getting the exercise in is so important. I've been trying to do exercise earlier in the morning, and now that work doesn't start till 9, it's a bit easier, like a bit more extra time. Have you also had something similar experience, Steve?
Yeah, so I've set up my own routine, like getting up at the same time every day, having lunch at the same time pretty much because it's home, you tend to kind of extend the lunch times as well, watching TV or, probably working extra and not having to give enough time for lunch as well. But these days I've put it as an alarm that I need to block my time for lunch. I need to block my time especially to get out of work as well. So I keep an alarm to remind myself to stop working and close my laptop. But regarding the exercising bit, I used to exercise fair bit in the weekends, but now that we don't get all that, I have to compensate it with the walks that we take during the breaks. One funny thing is my dog Mia, she's a very lazy dog. So she kind of gets up every now and then stretches herself. So my husband and I take that as cues, and then we stretch ourselves too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, and we also have this table tennis set up on our dining table. So we've converted it into a mini table tennis. So that gives us kind of some exercise, a mini break in between as well.
That's so YPN tip number 1, set up a table tennis on your dining room table.
Most definitely.
And how are you guys finding the technology and adapting what used to be some face-to-face meetings, some Skype meetings, and now it's 100% Skype or phone meetings? How are you guys finding that?
Yeah, with the technology side, it was interesting to see how quick the government was able to respond to set up those technologies for us to be able to work from home effectively. Previously, you might need to take a USB. I would encrypt that USB, so there was a waiting process there. But now virtual machines have become available, and it's actually very easy to work. I've been able to set up a situation where I have 3 screens, so it's very similar to work. I, in fact, have more screens now than I did at work. So I think if you set yourself up right, then with the technology, it can work for you. And in those video conferences, at first it was a little bit difficult to think about, okay, which app is the right app to use? And there were some questions about whether we should use Zoom. And there were some stories coming out about how there could be some privacy issues with Zoom, and the advice was for us not to use Zoom. So we've moved into using Microsoft Teams, but it is funny to think that, some of that meeting information that you might be sharing could become available to others. So that's a concern.
Yeah. Did you guys hear about the Hamish Blake scenario?
No.
Oh, Hamish was asking people through his Twitter or Instagram account for their Zoom links and passwords, and he, as a comedian he is, was going to jump on and say a couple of funny things, meant no harm, but until someone from the Australian Defence Force sent their Zoom link to him, and so he jumped on, and immediately whoever the chair of the meeting was like, Nope, Hamish, off you go. And I think, it's interesting because it's balancing the security issues of technology as well as it's now our lifeline to connect with our teams and our managers day in and day out.
Yeah, that's right. And communication is so important when you're working from home and working from home over an extended period. At work, you've got the ability to walk up to somebody and say, can we duck to a meeting room and have a quick chat? And you can have those sort of difficult conversations. Those can be quite difficult to try and, address when you are over a video conferencing situation. Things, although you can still see the person and you can hear them, you might not be able to express that sort of emotional side, which I think is quite important in workplace conversations sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Have you had any similar experiences, Dee?
With regards to the technology, so we use Microsoft Teams and Skype. So Zoom was never even a question for DCS. We've had I've had personally some Wi-Fi issues, just low connectivity issues. But I think we're doing good so far in terms of the collaboration with Microsoft Teams. Especially we've got multiple stakeholders from different departments. So we're doing pretty good with the technology bit, and it's working very well for us so far.
That's great. And I think the other thing is making sure that we're checking in with our managers day to day and having casual conversations as well. It's hard to figure out how to chime them in where, like you were saying, you used to be able to pop up to people at their desk and say, hey, you want to grab a quick coffee? Do you want to go for a walk? Want to chat about this project we're working on?
Yeah.
And we just can't do that at the moment. So I found one thing that helps is if it's around 4 p.m., 3:34, I'll give one of my colleagues a call and just check in and see how their day's going, and then casually bring up work perhaps, or because otherwise you just don't get a chance.
Yeah, and one thing that my managers did yesterday was send an email around for a welfare check.
That's
Just
good.
said, how are you guys going? And just started a little email chain between the team. And one of my colleagues told an interesting story about when she was young and her grandmother had 8 tubs of ice cream in the freezer. And she asked her grandmother, why do you have 8 tubs of ice cream? And she said, well, sometimes I just want an excuse to go for a walk and see some people and talk to them.
Wow.
So now that we're in isolation, I think we're starting to experience that as well.
Yeah, that's right. Our team does a very nice thing. So I've organized a social call, which is at 3:30 every day. Pretty much, some of us finish at that time, some of us don't, but that's a good time for all of us. And this social call is just to talk any non-work related stuff. So when you're at work, you're physically present, talking to them, having that mini chat about how their day went or what they did over the weekend, and those micro conversations. But now that you don't have time, we've scheduled this time specifically at 3:30, and it's fun trying to catch up on what TV series someone's watching, what their pet is doing. So my boss got a new pet, like a puppy, and he shows it on the camera. So it's more of a video call than an audio call. And sometimes we also do the dress up thing where somebody wears a hat, somebody dresses up as someone. It's fun, and I like this bit of socializing as well.
Yeah, I saw on LinkedIn Mark Scott, the Secretary of Department of Education. He is publishing a book this month, and he joined a meeting this morning on Zoom, and everyone, there's about 10 other people in the Zoom meeting, had changed their background to the cover of his book.
Wow.
Which is it's fun things. But otherwise, if we don't do these casual catch-ups, it really has an impact on our mental health. And we're already in self-isolation from our own friends, and now there's work as well. How have you guys been personally dealing with some of the mental health implications? Do you have a particular part of your routine that you do that eases it? Or, what do you do, Alex?
For me, I think the most important thing is to just get the basic things right. So making sure that you get outside, get some sunlight, you do that exercise, all those things sort of work towards your mental health being better. And a big part of that is also the social side. And as we were saying, catching up with friends, even if it's part of the workday, on your lunch break, just chatting with an old mate about how things are going, that's going to really improve your mood. And that's what I find works for me.
That's awesome. And what about you, Dee?
So I'm a very social person, like I said, and staying by myself really bogs me down. I need some sort of chatter, or I need some sort of activity to keep me going most of the times. I have my pet, which is kind of good. I kind of take her for walks and everything, but not having that social element also gets to me at times. But the way I've combated it is by having regular chats, either with family. I have video calls with family. So there's this new app going around. We've all installed it, and then we kind of have a chat on that app. But apart from that, I think it's more to do with how to keep myself occupied, doing one thing or the other, like probably getting back to my hobby. Cooking, baking, trying new air fryer recipes. So something to keep me occupied.
And you've definitely got the time and space now that we're isolated at home to do more cooking.
Yes.
I feel like I've only seen baking photos on social media and on Teams on our unit chat.
Absolutely.
Hashtag Rona baking.
Yeah, cooking is fantastic. I love cooking, and I find it as a real stress reliever, especially at the end of a day. Even in normal times, I'd come home from work and just enjoy the process of cooking, the aromas, and then serving it and eating it. It's just fantastic. It relieves all the stress of the day, and then I can relax at the end of the day. So I find cooking to be a wonderful thing for mental health.
Definitely. I've personally taken up mindfulness a lot more. So I'll take a 10-minute break at like 11 a.m. or 11:30 just to completely clear my mind of work just for 10 minutes and then jump back into it. And I found that really helpful to slow down a lot of the mental chatter because it can get quite fast paced now with a lot more COVID related work. And I guess I'm also wondering, have you guys taken up any extra learning or online courses now that we have a few extra hours on our hands every day?
Personally, I have signed up to a few LinkedIn courses, so we get that free. So I have signed up for some LinkedIn courses. I've always wanted to learn some programming, so I've taken up some Python programming skills now. So it's interesting.
That's fantastic. Oh, it's always a time to learn coding. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I've been very busy at work with COVID-related work, so I haven't had the time to do training, but we were encouraged to do online training if we were finding that work was being reduced. So I'll definitely take that up. I know IPAA have some fantastic training courses that are available for members. And so I would encourage people to definitely check those out because there's some real skills you can pick up, especially while you're at home. And there might not be as much work for some people. For others, there's more work. So I would encourage people to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a little bit biased as a massive IPA fan and on the YPN committee, but I have done a couple of the public sector capability professional development courses, and they're so good. They're like, you can do maybe 10 minutes every day, or you could do it all at once. And I did one on the think and solve problems capability, and it's fantastic the amount of new resources and new ways of thinking that they provide, which is really good. And another one that they have is the Reinventing Work, which is a new one they've just released. And it starts off with a video from Madeline, the CEO, as well as a video from Emma Hogan, who's now the Secretary of Customer Service. And it's a really good introduction to how we can start really incorporating flexible working now and well into the future. Have you guys checked those ones out yet?
Yeah, I had a look at those videos, and it's great to get really senior figures in the public sector talking about what's important at that level and the sort of things that will benefit you as you're working in the public sector. So I found those to be very valuable.
Definitely. And I think another resource that everyone can access is the Public Service Commission's resources on flexible working. And they've had these in existence for a few years now. And they've just released a couple more resources about managing teams during COVID, which may not apply to young professionals who haven't hit that manager level yet. But it's really good to understand the best approaches whilst we're in this scenario.
And it's definitely worthwhile checking out those sorts of learning experiences even before you become a manager, because that starts to put the sort of pieces of the puzzle into place for you to, make those steps further in your career. So I think definitely worthwhile checking out things that are potentially above your current pay grade.
And how have you guys been finding working from home? You mentioned before, Alex, you've got 3 screens set up. Have you guys done anything else around office ergonomics? Dee?
So I've got a sit-stand desk at home. So my husband and I both share it. I'm not used to stand-up desks as much because I'm sitting at work mostly. It was a new experience for me. Initially, I think the kind of chair that I used was a bit of a problem, so I ended up getting a bit of neck pain. And then I watched a few YouTube videos to see how the ergonomics work around sitting and how it should be at the 90-degree angle and how I should be seeing it at straight to my the length of my eyes. The horizon of my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it was hard initially, but I've kind of adjusted myself to these new work environments now. And then I sit for some times and then I stand for some times. So it's getting better these days.
That's awesome. Yeah, what about you, Alex?
Yeah, I had a very similar experience, Dee. I woke up with some terrible back pain after spending a lot of time because as you're sort of isolated at home, you do end up on the couch quite a lot. And then occasionally I'd be on the couch on my laptop responding to things, trying to multitask. And I found that it was seriously affecting me because I was waking up with serious pain. So I made sure that I got a very good office chair. And from that day on, it was a lot better. And as you were saying, making sure that your eye level is at the top of the monitor screen over a long period of time of concentrating on a computer monitor, that's what they say is it's going to improve, your longevity. So how long you can go through a day without your eyes getting tired, and also just making sure that you're not getting those little RSI issues, which you want to avoid, because obviously once those things start to kick in, working becomes a little bit uncomfortable and you don't want that.
Yeah, I think combined with the exercises as well and taking mini breaks in between will also help alleviate some of these stresses that our body faces.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me here today. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in to the GenYPN podcast and vodcast. If you would like to continue to join the conversation, please check out our new LinkedIn page, IPAA New South Wales Young Professional Network, and we'll be posting all the resources mentioned on today's podcast and vodcast. We'll also be sending links on the page to the IPAA New South Wales training resources that we mentioned. And thank you so much for listening. Sincerely appreciate it. And thank you, Alex and Dee, for joining me.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Jess.
And a final thanks to Sydney Sound Brewery for recording and producing this podcast.